what is common to Sanjay Hegde, Donald Trump and Kangana Ranaut. All of us had our Twitter accounts brought down. The poem was, Usko Phansi Do. And I just quote tweeted it and said, hang him. That was the English translation of the title.
So do you think there should be like a more elaborate legislation on social media and the usage of social media and how it's regulated, like a proper, elaborate, separate legislation for it?
Technology sometimes flies ahead of legislation, and legislation is often catching up.
What is your favorite movie Bollywood has ever produced?
I should think Sholay. It's the 50th year.
Your favorite memory of court?
More than a memory, it's a feeling. The feeling of the corridors of the Supreme Court.
The most interesting question, Delhi or Bombay?
कौन जाए ज़ौक़ पर दिल्ली की गलियां छोड़कर?
Hello everyone, welcome to LiveLaw. I'm Advocate Nazarat Fatima and this is the 4th episode of this series. This series basically is about inviting people from the legal fraternity, be it lawyers, senior advocates, judges, or we might also be interested in inviting academicians in the future. And what basically is interesting about this series is that we are not talking about law particularly. We are talking about the life of lawyers beyond the field of law. And today we have with us Senior Advocate Sanjay Hegde, who has made significant contributions to the field of law and is a prominent figure in this world. Without talking much about him, I would like to learn from him what he thinks about this field, and the interesting part that he's not just associated with law, he's deeply interested in history. Today in this episode, we're going to talk about his encounters with history, his learnings about history, and how he found his interest in this subject. So without talking much about it, I will give it to you. So I'd not like to pose a question. I'd just ask you to begin by talking about how you found your interest in history and what actually led to it.
Well, history has always been something that I've liked. In fact, I remember that we first had history in class 3 and I could almost recite the chapters by heart. We had freedom fighters in those days, so each chapter I could recite by heart, and often was called upon as a child to perform in front of visiting guests and all that. Mm-hmm. But I think I don't think it's just history. It's the history of this wonderful city that I live in. Mm-hmm. Delhi is such a great source where people and come in, they establish kingdoms, kingdoms become empires, empires rust, and everything recreates itself from time to time. Mm-hmm. So I do like walking around the various little corners of Delhi, Old Delhi, or Mehrauli. And once, I was taking a set of women on a history walk from this Turkman Gate to Lahori Gate. Mm-hmm. We called it the Begum's Walk. Oh. Different women who were part of that entire. It's actually one long street of about 3 kilometers or so. Mm-hmm. And we came across. This was 2014. Mm-hmm. A new government had just come in.
Okay. And
we were passing Gali Kashmiriya. Mm-hmm. It's actually Gali Prem Narayan. Mm-hmm. There was the ruins of the Haksar Haveli where Jawaharlal Nehru had married Kamala Nehru.
Okay.
In Delhi. And the Haveli was gone, everything had fallen apart. But down there, the shops were still going on. There were old rentals obviously hanging on. Mm-hmm. And in one of the shops, you had a cutout. Mm-hmm. It was a BJP office and you had a cutout of the Prime Minister. I said, look, this is exactly what Delhi is about. Okay. You have the old order giving way to the new. You have the destruction of an old order, and you have something new coming up. Mm-hmm. And history makes its way insidiously all over the city. You only have to look for it.
It's so interesting how you're casually talking about these things as if they're the stories from your house.
It is. Actually, what do we do in the Supreme Court? We recite the history of a case.
Yes.
The case began when an FIR was filed in so and so place, and look what the FIR said. And after the FIR came the charge sheet, and after the charge sheet came the trial, and in the trial the witnesses said this. This is how the trial court appreciated it. This is how the High Court appreciated it, and it went so wrong at this stage, and this stage, and therefore, please, your lordships, can you kindly intervene?
It's basically stories.
Yes, and it's the same thing with the civil law. So if you have a sense of order driven by a chronology, it does help you in your profession, especially at the appellate stage.
This is something that I was going to talk about anyway, because you've been a lawyer for the last so many years. I think it's since 1989 you've been a lawyer. You've been in this profession. You've survived. That's something, which is also a subtle flex. 1989 is quite a long time ago. There might be so many stories. You might have seen so many lawyers grow up into old men. You might have also seen some lawyers who are not here with us anymore. There might be so many things in your mind, so many stories that you can share with us. So would you like to talk about some of these significant moments, some incidents or events that have actually helped you be the person that you are today?
No, I'd much rather like to talk about old men, as as you said. And when I came in in my late 20s out here, there was a very old man who was shuffling in, and people were being respectful to him. And the great Mr. Mullah, and it was not Mullah and Mullah, Mullah of Mullah and Mullah, where I had interned for a couple of years before I came to Delhi. It was Justice Anand Narayan Mullah, who had been Mrs. Gandhi's lawyer, who had been a famous judge in Allahabad, who had written that little passage about there not being a more lawless force in India than the Uttar Pradesh police, which got commented upon by the Supreme Court in Mohammad Noor. And I was told he was 90 plus, and I was wondering why he even bothered, or how could he even come at that age? But now, over a whole period of time, when I've seen Mr. Shanti Bhushan, Mr. Jethmalani, Fali Nariman, Sole Sohrabji, and the last of the titans, Mr. Venugopal, who's still around with us. And 90s seems to be the new 60s and 70s.
You've actually lived beautiful experiences in your life. Sir, we all have had, not that I have had bitter experiences as of now, I'm too early to say that, but we all go through these experiences as lawyers. It's quite often said that it's a very difficult profession. When you talk about litigation, you have that idea of difficulty just somehow emerges. So for you, I'm sure it must have been a similar struggle, like all of us. But would you like to talk about the seniors that you've worked with, someone who you started off with, and seniors generally, basically?
Well, my senior was the late Mr. G. Ramaswamy. He was Attorney General for India when I joined him. And he was such a sharp mind that Mr. Jethmalani had, in a public interview, said that if he had a problem, if he personally was involved in a criminal case and he needed a lawyer, he would go to Mr. G. Ramaswamy.
No.
And that was what made me join GR, that interview. So, and he was a brilliant man who died relatively young. He was a contemporary of Mr. Venugopal and Mr. Nariman, but he died in 1999, just touching 70. He was a man of incredible skill at reading a brief, at reading a judge, at pitching his case exactly where the case had to be pitched. And he's taught me, I owe a lot to him in terms of advocacy, in terms of how I approach briefs. But quite apart from him, I've also had the good fortune of working with Mr. Fali Nariman, with Mr. Sole Sohrabji, with Gopal Subramaniam occasionally, Gulam Vahanvati, Ashok Desai. I owe debts of gratitude to all these great seniors, Mr. Andya Rujuna and Mr. P.P. Rao also. each of them had their own individual styles of working. And to my mind, you cannot copy any one senior. Or you can't necessarily say that I will be the next Mr. So-and-so.
Yes.
This profession can very easily spot fakes. It demands authenticity of voice. You may be an amalgam of many influences, both conscious and unconscious. But if you're not authentic, you cannot pitch. And nor will you be believed.
So I don't think we can actually have absolute favorites when it comes to a profession like this. But do you still feel like there's this one person who has inspired you the most? I mean, again, I'm asking in absolutes, but is there somebody you feel like this one person has inspired you the most?
Well, to a great extent, I think Mr. Nariman. Because you see the absolute awe and reverence with which he was held. Not only by the bar, but by the bench itself. And if he said something, it was almost as if it was an oracle who had said it. I remember a Chief Justice of India, Justice H.L. Dattu. We were giving him a farewell from the Karnataka bar, and he was speaking of his experiences with consulting Mr. Nariman after the NJAC case as to what was to be done, and how he had sent over his registrars and how the draft did not come in time. So it was almost like that he was a client.
Okay.
Despite being the Chief Justice of India. So Mr. Nariman was a man who could pitch his advocacy brilliantly with very simple examples which struck immediately home. A small unmarked case, for instance, always comes to my mind, was when he was arguing about whether the Municipal Corporation of Bombay could build some public toilets on the road to Churchgate railway station. The problem was that it was next to a holy well for the Parsis. And it was Chief Justice Venkatachalaya, and he said, Malods, the problem in India is not that we go to the toilet, but we go towards the toilet. Just that one word, towards, made all the difference.
All the difference.
And he conveyed everything about what was wrong with that proposal.
Yeah.
So I hold Mr. Nariman in very great regard.
I think I was somehow expecting that. I don't know why, but I was. Since we're talking about history, and history definitely does not have to be confined to the history we talk about in books. For you, history is also has a lot to do with your journey as a lawyer and the kind of stories you can share, the kind of stories you hold inside. I think good and bad encounters and experiences remain a significant part of the history. So, a simple question: what is your worst encounter? What is the worst encounter you've had in this journey of being in the Supreme Court, particularly?
See, you always have your good days, you have your bad days.
So I'm asking
and I think the worst encounter is not so much the encounter, but the after effect of the encounter when you go out of court and you think that, I wish I'd said that, maybe his mind would have changed, his or her mind would have changed. So that there are many an occasion. But, if I don't know whether to recollect it, so many people revere Justice Verma's memory. But Justice Verma could also fly off the handle. And I'm saying this only so that if anybody sees it and later on happens to be a judge, he knows what not to do, how the greatness of a judge is often marred in people's perception by something that you say off the cuff. So what had happened was that my father had died, and I'd just come back from the funeral and all that. A friend had received me. And after that, the same day his father died. And then I went to Justice Verma's court for one of his matters to say, please adjourn the matter. I don't know, Justice Verma may have got up of the wrong side of the bed that day, or I just had some conflict with someone. He said, "What is the hurry to mention? Huh? Could you not have waited till the matter was called out? Could you not? Is your practice so large that you can't wait?" Now that was unnecessary bullying, and especially to a young lawyer.
No.
Now, irrespective of all the great judgments that Justice Verma may have written and his contributions, to my mind, he still remains that bully who disregarded the normal courtesies of the bar. I was being courteous to him, saying that this matter, that request may come later. So I was just helping him put right his board. But no.
I can imagine I might be a part of a good controversy in a while, maybe. So what about the best? What about the best one? There must be many. But
There are always ones. And again, the same thing. Just like you go out saying, I wish I'd said that. You always have that kick when you said something and the judge turned.
Okay.
And so there have been instances like that. In fact, again, every old lawyer or every old judge always remembers his younger days much more than the days when everything is routine for him, and there's a lot of money and fame floating by.
When he knows
But when you're younger, if something happens and you manage to turn a judge, that always stays with you. So, in fact, it was my early days for the state of Karnataka, and I'd just taken over, and it was a tough bench of Justice Kirpal and Justice Rumapal, and they were not having any of what I was trying to tell them. Justice Rumapal decided to just take my trip. She said, "Turn to page so and so," and made me read it. And as I turned the page, I realized that there was no continuity.
Oh.
The pages had got mixed up. So she was just telling me, you did not read that page. So I could see that. Then I was trying to get Justice Kirpal to read a document, and he blew up at the translation. So what kind of translation is this? And by then the matter was lost, and I sort of looked at him and I told him that, it reminded me of a story that Mr. G. Ramaswamy, my senior, whom we talked about earlier, had told me. He said, what? Because I knew that Justice Kirpal and Mr. Ramaswamy had been friends, and that had married me a joke. So told him that during the Cold War, the Russians had invented a translation machine. And it was given the phrase, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And the translation came out, the vodka is fine, the meat is rotten. So Justice Kirpal had a huge laugh. He said, that's your best argument so far. I said,
that definitely is. Is it though?
No. So I said,
what is your
no.
argument?
So I said, then give me notice on that.
Okay.
And he was a giant of a judge. He said, yes, okay, go, notice.
So your job was done.
Yes, so my job for that day was done. And as a young man, to make a mark, to get a judge to change his mind, that is always a sense of achievement.
Meant something.
Yes.
So you did talk about something that impels me to ask this question. What is your favorite argument that you ever made?
My favorite argument that I have ever made, I don't think, I've had many memorable arguments. I quite liked the arguments that my colleague helped me in the hijab matter, especially before the Karnataka High Court. It was a full bench, and it was the early days of this webcasting. So I'm told that the YouTube channel which was showing the hearing at one stage had about 30,000 people watching it.
Oh.
And that was live, and that was quite something. And in the hijab, and while the case on the hijab may have been about essential religious practices, I told them that, look, more than anything else, it was about essential education for girls in government colleges who could not be denied the benefit of government education just because they insisted on religious attire. So that did get some traction in many places, and that was possibly the argument which finally prevailed with Justice Dhulia of the when the Supreme Court split 1:1 on that.
So you've been a part of many significant decisions and some controversies as well. I just got reminded of the Twitter controversy. How does it feel at this point? Would you like to talk about it? Because your account, your profile was brought down. It was suspended for a while, I guess. So what was it about? Would you like people to know about it?
Well, I have always joked that anybody could have in a legal quiz, the question could come, what is common to Sanjay Hegde, Donald Trump and Kangana Ranaut? All of us had our Twitter accounts brought down. And this was
not the best thing to happen, but...
Yeah, this was during the days of Jack Dorsey and his team owning Twitter. Now, what you say on Twitter is like saying out in the public square. And if you are locked out of a significant portion of the public square, whether it be Twitter, whether it be Meta, whether it be Google, whether it be YouTube or Insta or anything, then the question comes, why should free public speech be at the mercy of private corporations?
Yes.
Private corporations have their rules, and their rules are made for various other purposes. But there are also people who take advantage of these rules to lock somebody out of the discourse. In my case, what had happened was that there were a set of people who wanted me locked out of Twitter, possibly the IT cell, the infamous IT cell, as it were. And they first got my account suspended for quote tweeting a poem by Gorakh Pandey, which Kavita Krishnan had put up. And the poem was, Usko Phansi Do.
Okay.
And I just quote tweeted it and said, hang him. That was the English translation of the title. They said, this encourages suicide. So then I filed an appeal and my account was restored the next day. So, algorithms can get things wrong. Fine, sorted out with an appeal, which meant it went to a human. The next day, they went after my header picture, which even today now is on my Twitter account. It is the picture of how one man stood like this, crossed his arms, when everybody was furiously giving a Nazi salute, saluting Hitler. The fellow was called August Landmesser, and he had a very sad story. But that is an iconic symbol of standing for your opinions, even though the rest of the world is going another way. Somebody or a whole set of complaints went that this is pro-Nazi speech, and again the account went down. I filed an appeal, but this time Twitter refused to restore my account.
Okay.
And I thought it was an obvious case of an algorithm being gamed and that a human would have sense. But I don't know for what reasons Twitter of those days brought down the account. I then filed a writ petition in the Delhi High Court, and the questions of law that were raised there were interesting and have often formed the basis for jurisprudence elsewhere as well. But then COVID intervened. The effective hearing didn't happen. In the meanwhile, my account was restored when Elon Musk took over Twitter. And so, an overworked High Court said, why should we really answer these questions now? They've left those questions open. But I do wish an Indian court had taken the lead in drafting the outlines or the contours of this new jurisprudence, which is very relevant to our times.
Yes.
Even now we have this controversy of how YouTube's algorithms are being gamed by these news agencies who say that if you take any of their video shots, then you have to pay them for a year's subscription or whatever they ask. So when the coercive nature of platform policies are utilized for ulterior purposes? Does the platform owe any responsibility, or is there somebody beyond the platform who's a public authority who has to look into it? These are questions of the future.
So do you think there should be like a more elaborate legislation on social media and the usage of social media and how it's regulated, like a proper, elaborate, separate legislation for it?
See, the problem with the technology is that technology sometimes flies ahead of legislation, and legislation is often catching up. And the more you legislate, the more the loopholes you create. I do think that there should be fair user policies, uniformly applied, and with the ombudsman outside the platforms themselves. Because the moment you bring in legislation, you are also inviting government control. And once there is some defined legislation, it is not only IT cells and other organized creatures who game it, but the government itself.
Yes, that is quite something about it. Now I'd like to go for a little bit of a rapid fire round, which will not take a lot of time. So the first question would be your favorite ruler from the history of India.
Sher Shah Suri. 5 years, he changed India.
What is your favorite movie Bollywood has ever produced?
I should think Sholay. It's the 50th year.
Sholay.
Sholay.
Okay. One book you would recommend everyone to read?
This is a personal favorite. The Rampol series.
One judgment every lawyer should read?
I should think Menka Gandhi.
Menka Gandhi. One decision of the Supreme Court that you did not agree with personally?
ADM Jabalpur is such an obvious answer.
Your favorite memory of court?
More than a memory, it's a feeling. The feeling of the corridors of the Supreme Court, where freedom of speech is given its full amplitude.
Great, I would love to live there. The most interesting question, Delhi or Bombay?
That is a difficult one, both for me and my wife. We've spent a whole portion of our young lives in Bombay. We've moved to Delhi. We've had wonderful friends here. But Bombay is a more democratic space. And Delhi has such nice infrastructure. So I sometimes think that the ideal mix would be Delhi, inhabited by Bombay's people.
Delhi or Bombay? You'll have to choose one. Delhi or Bombay?
I guess, given the course of my life, I do expect that I'll end it in Delhi. So it will have to be Delhi. So, kaun jaye zauq par Delhi ki galiyan chhodkar.
Lovely. So we've talked about a lot of things. Some are controversial, some are not so controversial, and quite interesting things that we talked about. Since this episode was centered around history, I would also like for our audience to see where you actually live and what connection it shares with history, because right now we're in front of the Humayun's tomb, which definitely has something to do with your inclination with history. So we'd like to take a shot there on the rooftop and show it to the audience where you live, and make people a little envious of some things that some of us have and some don't. But we'd definitely like to take a shot there. So the next, you'll see Humayun's tomb. So this is the view that we were talking about. That's the beautiful Humayun's tomb, and right in front of the house. So sir, why exactly is this place that you chose to be your house?
Well, it was, surprisingly, it was not Humayun's tomb alone. You know, Subramaniam Swamy, his wife called me when I was a young lawyer for lunch, and his house is also in the same area.
Okay.
I saw the surroundings. It's green all over, and I said at that point of time that if life is good to me and if I make some money, maybe I'll one day have a house here. But you know, Humayun's tomb being where it is not because of Humayun or not because of the Mughals. It is because of Nizamuddin Aulia. And say somewhere on the right side of Humayun's tomb, you will see, your camera may not be able to see it, but there is a Gurdwara, and between the tomb and the Gurdwara is the monastery, the Chilla, where Nizamuddin Aulia and Amir Khusro spent most of their time. Nizamuddin Aulia, surprisingly, has a legal background.
Okay.
Yes, when he came to Delhi from Uttar Pradesh, from Badayun, he wanted to be the chief Qazi of Delhi.
Oh.
And then he met his spiritual mentor, Baba Farid, who told him, no, don't go into the law. So maybe there may have been a connect of people who come to Delhi to get into the law, and then they end up in the Nizamuddin area.
You have a story for everything, but this definitely is a very beautiful one. So let's just look at this and just have like a closer view of the view.
Let me again get into history and a list of dates. This is both the beginning and the end of the Mughal Empire. It is the beginning of the Mughal Empire simply because this building stabilized the Mughal Empire.
Oh.
You had Babur, who came and ruled for 5 years, Humayun, who hung on to power but lost it for 15 years, came back and within 6 months was dead. It was after he died and a 13-year-old emperor was crowned in the Punjab and then defended at the Second Battle of Panipat that the Mughal Empire had to be stabilized. How do you stabilize an empire? But by giving everybody work. And so this was a massive public work.
Oh.
And that's how the empire was stabilized. It was the Narega of its times, possibly. Thereafter, it was also the end of the Mughal Empire because in September 1857, Bahadur Shah Zafar was captured from here by the British officer who took him away one day, saying that things have been settled in the old city of Delhi, and he took him there, and then he was tried there and sent off to Rangoon. His sons who continued to stay on here for the next day were taken away, and they were shot very close to where the Supreme Court today is, at the Khuni Darwaza, just near the Firozshah Kotla. So this is a wonderful monument.
So many stories linked to it.
So many stories linked to it. There are even Dara Shikoh is buried there.
Oh.
And there are so many other minor Mughal emperors. It's called the dormitory of the Mughals. And this is the first Mughal monument in India in that sense. And the last Mughal monument of a dying Mughal empire was the Safdarjung's tomb, which is on a straight line down the Lodi Road.
Okay. So much to learn, so much history. Like I said, you talk about history so casually, like it's about your family. I'm really, really happy we got to see this, and I'm happy that the audience is getting to see it. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for giving us those stories. We'll cherish them forever.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being with us today in this episode. It was lovely having you with us. It was lovely having this conversation. There's so much to learn, so many experiences that you've shared, and I'm sure we all can relate, will be able to relate someday in the future. We hope you like this series. We'll invite more and more guests. The videos will get more interesting. Please like the videos, share with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.